In the village, Khalid worked tirelessly at the construction site for days. Each evening, he would visit his grandmother at the hospital, watching her condition worsen despite the small treatments they could afford. The doctors kept stressing that without the full surgery, she wouldn't survive much longer. "You need rest too, my boy," Mrs. Amina told him one evening. As their neighbor, she had been visiting the hospital daily, bringing home cooked food and sitting with Khalid's grandmother while he worked. "I can't rest," Khalid replied, his voice filled with exhaustion. "The construction work isn't enough. I need more money, and quickly." The next day, Mrs. Amina approached Khalid with a small cloth bag. "I want you to have this," she said, pressing it into his hands. Inside was all the money she had saved for her upcoming pilgrimage to Mecca. "Mrs. Amina, I can't take this," Khalid protested. "I am sure you have need for it. Your grandmother's health is more important," she said firmly. "Your grandmother was there for me when no one else was. Now it's my turn." Khalid's eyes filled with tears as he accepted her generosity. With this money added to his savings, they could at least start the initial treatments while he continued to work. But even with Mrs. Amina's contribution, they were still far short of the full amount needed for the surgery. In desperation, Khalid made one last attempt to contact his father. This time, he called the bookshop directly. When his father answered, Khalid spoke rapidly. "Baba, it's Grandma. The doctors say she needs surgery immediately or she won't survive. Please, I've tried everything. I am even working in a construction site to raise money." His father interrupted. "I have nothing with her. The connection we had was your mom, and she is gone now. The past remains in the past. Do not call me. I am focused on my wife and son. They are their family, I know." Then he hung up. Khalid felt so disappointed and hopeless after the call. He couldn't believe that his sweet father, who once loved and respected his grandmother, could abandon her. He was so sad. That evening, he received a call from the hospital. His grandmother's condition had worsened. By the time he reached her bedside, she was barely conscious. "Khalid," she whispered, her voice thin. "Don't blame yourself, my boy. You've done everything you could." "Grandma, please hold on," Khalid begged, holding her weak hand. "I'll get the money somehow. Just a few more days." She smiled weakly. "Be strong, my Khalid. Do me a favor, my boy. Please forgive your father. He doesn't know what he is doing." Khalid tried to respond, but his grandmother stopped him and said, "Always remember that I love you." In the early hours of the morning, with Khalid asleep in the chair beside her bed, his grandmother slipped away quietly. The nurse gently woke him to deliver the news. The grief that washed over Khalid brought back the memory of his mother's death. It was still very fresh in his head. Now he had no one in his life. Mrs. Amina found him sitting outside the hospital, staring blankly into space. "My boy," she said softly, sitting beside him. "Come home with me. You shouldn't be alone." "I can't go back to the compound," Khalid said. "Everything there reminds me of her." Mrs. Amina nodded in understanding. "Then stay with me for a while. Just until you decide what to do next." Khalid agreed to stay with Mrs. Amina until he figured out what to do next. After the burial arrangements were complete, Khalid sat alone in his grandmother's house. The silence was deafening. He returned back to Mrs. Amina's house and went to bed after Mrs. Amina ensured he had something to eat. At night, with sudden clarity, Khalid knew he couldn't stay in the village without his grandmother. He gathered his belongings, which he brought to Mrs. Amina's house: some clothes, his mother's photograph, his shoemaking tools, his school certificates, and the small amount of money left from Mrs. Amina's gift after the funeral expenses. The next morning, Khalid told Mrs. Amina he had made a decision about what to do next. "Lagos," he told her. "I'll go to Lagos and start over. Maybe find work, save for university. But where will you stay? Do you know anyone there?" she asked worriedly. "I'll figure it out," Khalid said, with more confidence than he felt. Mrs. Amina gave him some food and a small additional sum of money. "Call me when you arrive," she insisted. "And if things don't work out, you always have a home here." Khalid assured her he will call when he arrived Lagos, and he thanked her for all she had done for him. The journey to Lagos was long. Khalid sat between other passengers on the bus. His mind was numb with grief and exhaustion. Upon arrival in the bustling city, the reality of his situation hit him. The noise, the crowds, the unfamiliar streets, everything overwhelmed him. He had no plan, no contacts, nowhere to go. For the first night, he slept at the bus terminal. The next day, he wandered the streets, looking for work or affordable accommodation. By evening, with nowhere else to go, Khalid found himself in an area with several unfinished buildings. One structure, more complete than the others, caught his eye. The ground floor had walls and a partial roof. Checking to make sure no one was watching, Khalid slipped inside. The concrete floor was hard, but it was safer than sleeping on the streets. He arranged his few possessions in a corner. As darkness fell, Khalid stared at the stars visible through the gaps in the unfinished ceiling. He allowed himself to grieve at his situation, but he had hope for a better future. The morning sun filtered through the gaps in the unfinished building, waking Khalid. His back ached from sleeping on the hard concrete floor. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, trying to push away the sadness. His grandmother was gone, but he had to keep going. First, find work, he told himself, voice echoing in the empty space. Then find a real place to stay. Khalid splashed some water on his face. He ate a piece of bread Mrs. Amina had given him. Outside, Lagos was already alive with noise and movement. Cars honked, people shouted, music blared from shops. Khalid walked with purpose, stopping at every business he passed. "Do you need help?" he asked at a restaurant. "No jobs here," the owner said. "At a small clothing shop, I can clean, organize, whatever you need." "We already have enough workers," came the reply. By midday, Khalid had been turned away from different places. His feet hurt, and his hope was fading. He counted his money, barely enough for 4 days if he ate only once a day. Day after day, the pattern repeated. Khalid was unable to find work. By the 5th day, Khalid had only enough money for one more meal. He sat on a bench in a small park, lost in thoughts. What would his mother say, he wondered. The thought brought tears to his eyes, which he quickly wiped away. She would tell him to keep trying, to never give up. The next morning, hungry and tired, Khalid decided to use his last money to buy something to eat. Maybe with a full stomach, he could think more clearly. He walked to a busy marketplace, looking for the cheapest food seller. As he was about to pay for a small plate of rice, he heard a woman's voice raised in frustration. "Oh no! Not today of all days!" Khalid turned to see a well-dressed woman looking down at her foot with dismay. Her shoe had split open at the side. "I have a job interview in an hour," she was saying to no one in particular. Why did this shoe have to go bad now? She was clearly frustrated. People rushed past her, too busy with their own problems to offer help. The woman tried to take a step, but the shoe flopped awkwardly. Khalid realized he can fix the lady's shoe from his knowledge of shoemaking and repairs. It was a skill Khalid had almost forgotten he could do because of his recent family problems. Without thinking, he approached the woman. "Excuse me," he said politely. "I can fix your shoe." The woman looked at him with surprise. "You can?" "Yes," Khalid said. "I am a cobbler. I can make your shoe good as new." She hesitated, clearly uncertain whether to trust him. "I need some simple tools," Khalid explained. "I have them at my place. If you wait here, I can go get them and fix your shoe right here in the market." The woman checked her watch. "How long will it take?" "Getting the tools and fixing the shoe?" "Maybe 15 to 20 minutes, Khalid estimated. After a moment's thought, she nodded. "Okay. I'll wait by that food stall," she said, pointing. Khalid hurried back to the abandoned building. Among his few possessions was a small sewing kit. It had strong thread and a thick needle. When he returned to the marketplace, he was surprised to find the woman still waiting. She had taken off her broken shoe and was sitting on a plastic chair the food seller had provided. "I wasn't sure you would come back," she admitted as Khalid examined the shoe. The sole has come away from the upper, he explained. I can sew it back together. Khalid worked quickly to fix the shoe. 20 minutes later, Khalid handed the shoe back to the woman. Try it now, he said. She slipped it on and stood up, testing it by walking a few steps. It feels solid, she said with surprise. Better than before, actually. The woman opened her purse and took out some money. Thank you, she said, handing it to Khalid. You saved me today. Khalid looked at the money in his hand. Thank you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Do you have a shop? The woman asked. Khalid shook his head. No, I'm new to Lagos. I've been looking for work. Well, you certainly have skills, she said. And hurried to leave. Khalid had a sudden thought. He looked around the marketplace. People were busy shopping, wearing shoes that must need repair sometimes. I could do this, he whispered to himself. I could repair shoes right here in the market. The next day, Khalid arranged his basic tools and supplies. He found a spot in the marketplace where he could sit without being in anyone's way. He placed his few tools on a piece of cloth and waited. For the first hour, no one approached him. Then an old man stopped, looking at Khalid's setup. You fix shoes? He asked. Yes, I can make them good as new, Khalid said eagerly. The old man took off his worn sandal and handed it to Khalid. The strap is coming loose. Can you fix it? Of course, Khalid said, examining the sandal. It was a simple repair, and he completed it quickly. The old man seemed pleased and paid Khalid a small amount. By the end of the day, Khalid had repaired 3 more pairs of shoes. It wasn't much, but it was a start. He used some of his earnings to buy a proper meal, his first in days, and saved the rest. The next morning, Khalid returned to the same spot. This time, he brought a small sign he had made from a piece of cardboard, shoe repairs, quick and affordable. A woman approached him mid-morning. My son's school shoe is falling apart, she said, showing him a child's shoe with the sole coming away. Can you fix it to last until the end of the term? I can't afford new ones yet. Khalid examined the shoe. I can make it stronger than new, he promised. And he kept to his words. The woman was so pleased she brought her other son's shoes later that day. These need fixing too, she said. By the end of the week, Khalid had regular customers. He started saving money, a little each day. From his earnings he set out some money to buy a table for his shoe repair work. He was happy because he was seeing some growth. Khalid had the table set up at his spot in the marketplace. He arranged his tools neatly. That morning, business was slow. A few regular customers came by, but most people just walked past, not yet noticing the upgrade to his little business. By midday, Khalid was starting to worry. Had he spent too much on the table? Would he have enough customers to make back the money? Just as he was considering closing early, he noticed a sleek black car. The driver got out and opened the back door, and a woman stepped out. Even from a distance, Khalid could tell she was wealthy. Her clothes were bright and perfectly fitted. The woman moved through the marketplace with confidence, making various purchases. Her driver followed behind, collecting her bags. Khalid watched her with interest. Suddenly, there was a sharp crack. She reached down to her foot, her face twisting in annoyance. This is why I don't wear these shoes to the market, she said to her driver. The heel has completely broken off. Khalid saw his chance. He stood up and called out, Ma, I can fix that for you. I repair shoes right here. The woman looked in his direction. She said something to her driver, who nodded and helped her walk toward Khalid's table. As she got closer, Khalid could see she was even more elegant up close. Her shoes were made of fine leather. You can repair designer shoes, she asked, her tone doubtful as she looked at his simple setup. I can repair any shoe, Ma, Khalid said with more confidence than he felt. The truth was, he had never worked on such expensive footwear before. The woman studied him for a moment. I suppose it's worth a try. She slipped off both shoes and handed them to Khalid. These are Italian leather. Very expensive. Be careful with them. Khalid nodded, examining the broken heel. The shoe was indeed high quality. I can fix this, he said, looking up at her. It won't take long, Ma. Okay, I will wait in the car, said the woman. Khalid gave her some slippers to help lead her to the car. Her driver escorted her back to the car. Once she was settled, he returned to stand near Khalid's table. Khalid swallowed nervously. This was his chance to impress a wealthy customer, someone who might recommend him to others with money to spend. He had to do his best work. First, he examined both shoes carefully, noting how they were constructed. He worked with complete focus. As he waited for the adhesive to set, Khalid found himself studying the shoe's design. The driver had returned back to the car, so Khalid used the chance to make some sketches of the shoe using scrap of paper. As the driver walked back to Khalid's table, he saw that he was done with the repairs. I'll tell Madam you're finished, the driver said. A moment later, the woman emerged and walked carefully to Khalid's table. She took the shoes, examining them closely before putting them on. Please walk a bit, Madam, Khalid suggested. You have to make sure the heel feels secure. The woman looked surprised at his confidence but did as he suggested, walking a few steps. It feels solid, she said, sounding impressed. I can't even tell it was broken. She looked at Khalid with new interest. How much do I owe you? Khalid hesitated. What was the right price for repairing such expensive shoes? Too little would make him seem amateur, too much might offend her. 1,000 naira, Madam, he said finally, hoping it was reasonable. To his surprise, the woman laughed. For saving my favorite pair of Ferragamo? That's far too little. She opened her purse and took out some money. Here's 5,000. Good work deserves good pay. Khalid stared at the money in shock. It was more than he typically made in a day. Thank you, Madam, he managed to say. The woman nodded, then noticed the sketches on his table. Did you draw these? She asked, picking up one of the papers. Khalid nodded nervously. Yes, Madam. I hope you don't mind. The craftsmanship of your shoes is very interesting to me. She studied the sketches. These are quite good. You have an eye for detail. She looked at him with new interest. Have you ever designed shoes, or just repaired them? I used to make shoes, but I focus on repairs now, Madam. The woman reached into her purse again and pulled out a business card. I'm Mrs. Adebayo, and my husband owns Lagos Luxury Footwear. It's one of the largest shoe factories in Lagos. She handed him the card. Come to this address next Tuesday at 9 a.m. Ask for Mrs. Adebayo. I'll introduce you to my husband. He's always looking for people with natural talent. Khalid took the card with trembling fingers. Thank you, Madam. I will be there. Khalid was excited to have the opportunity to meet a rich and influential woman like Mrs. Adebayo. He felt hopeful that his meeting at the Lagos Luxury Footwear would be a positive one. The next few days, Khalid worked harder than ever, trying to save as much money as possible. He would need to look his best when meeting Mr. Adebayo. He used some of his earnings to buy his first new shirt and trouser since arriving in Lagos. On Monday evening, he got a proper haircut in preparation for the meeting. That night, Khalid laid out his clothes carefully and set an alarm on his phone. He couldn't risk oversleeping. Finally, exhaustion took over, and Khalid fell asleep. The alarm jolted him awake at 5:30 a.m. It was still dark outside, but Khalid got up immediately. He washed carefully with cold water, put on his new shirt and freshly pressed trouser. You can do this, he told himself. By 7 a.m., Khalid was already on his way, allowing extra time to find the address. The business district was far from his neighborhood, and he wasn't familiar with it. He took a Danfo bus to the location. Luxury Footwear was housed in a modern 5-story building with large glass windows. Khalid stood across the street for a moment, gathering his courage. At exactly 8:45 a.m., Khalid crossed the street and went into the office with the help of the security guard. He was directed where to go. He walked down a hallway to a large office with a view of the city. The building was beautiful and luxurious. As he waited, a few minutes later, the door opened, and Mrs. Adebayo walked in, wearing another pair of beautiful shoes that Khalid immediately noticed. "Ah, the shoe repair boy," she said with a smile. "Right on time. I like that." "Thank you for inviting me, madam," Khalid said, standing up quickly. "My husband will join us soon," she said, taking a seat behind the desk. "While we wait, show me more of your drawings." "Okay, Ma." Khalid handed her some of his designs. Mrs. Adebayo looked at the designs carefully. "These are impressive, young man. It's obvious you have a good eye for details." "Thank you, Ma." Khalid smiled. When he turned around, he saw a tall man walking towards Mrs. Adebayo. "Is this him?" the man asked, his voice deep. "Yes, dear," Mrs. Adebayo replied. "This is Khalid, the young man I told you about." "Khalid, this is my husband, Mr. Adebayo." Khalid stood quickly. "It's an honor to meet you, sir." Mr. Adebayo studied him silently, then looked down at the drawing. "My wife tells me you fixed her shoes perfectly, and now I see you can draw as well." "I enjoy the work, sir," Khalid said honestly. Both repairing and studying the designs. Mr. Adebayo nodded slowly. "Where did you learn?" "After secondary school I went for shoe-making classes in Plateau State, sir." "But the drawing?" Khalid hesitated. "That just comes naturally, I guess." "And where did you study design?" "What school?" "No school, sir. I never had the opportunity." Mr. Adebayo's eyebrows rose. He exchanged a look with his wife. "No formal training at all?" "No, sir." Mr. Adebayo picked up the drawing and examined it more closely. He was clearly impressed by the designs. He put the drawing down and turned to his wife. "What do you think, my dear?" "I think he has potential," Mrs. Adebayo said. "Raw, untrained, but genuine talent." Mr. Adebayo turned back to Khalid. "Young man, I started this business repairing shoes, just like you. The difference is, I had opportunities, schooling, mentors, capital. Not everyone gets those chances. Lagos Luxury Footwear is launching a new line next year, shoes made entirely in Nigeria, designed by Nigerians." He turned back to face Khalid. "We need fresh ideas, people who understand both the craft and the art of shoemaking. Would you be interested in joining our apprenticeship program?" Khalid stared at him in disbelief. "Apprenticeship program?" "You would work directly under our head designer, learning the business from the ground up. It's hard work, long hours, and the pay is modest to start. But if you have the talent my wife believes you have, it could lead to much more." Khalid's heart pounded in his chest. "I would be honored, sir. Very honored." Mr. Adebayo extended his hand. "Welcome to Lagos Luxury Footwear, Khalid. Report to HR to complete the paperwork." "Thank you, sir," he managed to say. "I won't let you down." Mr. Adebayo gave a little smile. Once outside the building, Khalid looked up at the bright Lagos sky and smiled. "I did it," he whispered. "I found my path." On his first day at Lagos Luxury Footwear, Khalid arrived early. The HR manager, Mrs. Oni, walked him through the hallway after he filled out his paperwork. The factory was much bigger than Khalid had imagined. Different workers moved with purpose through different sections of the building. "You'll be working under Mr. Tunde, our head designer," said Mrs. Oni. After an introduction, Mr. Tunde pointed to an empty desk in the corner. "That's yours. First task, sketch 3 different men's dress shoes. I want to see your ideas." Khalid nodded and went straight to work. His heart pounded as he picked up a pencil. This was his chance to prove himself. For 2 hours, he sketched. When Mr. Tunde finally came to check on him, Khalid had different design sketches. Mr. Tunde picked up the sketches and flipped through them silently. "These are interesting," he said finally. "But it can be better." He pulled up a chair next to Khalid and taught him how to draw shoes properly. That night, Khalid's head spun with new information. He stayed up late in the incomplete building, redrawing his designs using the techniques Mr. Tunde had shown him. Weeks turned into a month. It was time for Khalid to collect his first salary. He was happy, and he was able to rent a small, comfortable self-con. Back at work, Khalid studied the shoe samples in the company's display room. Mr. Tunde noticed Khalid's dedication. After some time, he began giving Khalid more responsibility, first small tasks, then larger projects. Khalid was allowed to help refine designs for the company's upcoming season. One Monday morning, the design department buzzed with excitement. Mr. Adebayo himself was coming to review designs for Lagos Fashion Week, the biggest fashion event in West Africa. Lagos Luxury Footwear would be showcasing its new proudly Nigerian collection. Mr. Tunde gathered his team. This is our chance to make a statement on the international stage. I want your best ideas. For the next 2 weeks, the design team worked overtime, creating and refining concepts for the show. Khalid stayed late every night, working on his own designs after finishing his regular assignments. The day of the review arrived. Mr. Adebayo and other executives examined the proposed shoes for the fashion show. Khalid stood nervously beside his desk where he had carefully arranged his designs. He had created 3 different styles, each incorporating traditional Nigerian patterns into modern shoe designs. When Mr. Adebayo reached Khalid's desk, he paused. "Ah, the shoe repair boy," he said. "Let's see what you've come up with." Mr. Adebayo picked up Khalid's designs. He studied it silently. "Impressive work, and how would you actually construct this?" Khalid swallowed hard. "I've been experimenting with laser etching in the workshop after hours, sir." Mr. Adebayo looked surprised and impressed. Mr. Adebayo picked up all 3 of Khalid's designs. "I want these in the show," he said decisively. "Make prototypes immediately." The room fell silent. It was unusual for an apprentice's designs to be selected, especially for such an important event. "Yes, sir," Mr. Tunde said. He gave Khalid a small nod of approval. As Mr. Adebayo walked away, Khalid stood frozen, barely able to believe what had happened. "Congratulations," said his colleagues. The next few weeks, Khalid worked directly with the production team to create prototypes of his designs. Every detail had to be perfect. By the time Lagos Fashion Week arrived, Khalid had barely slept properly in days, but his designs were ready. 3 pairs of shoes, his shoes would be worn by models on the runway. He was so grateful for the opportunity given to him. The fashion show venue was packed with elite fashion industry professionals. Khalid felt out of place in his simple clothes, but Mrs. Adebayo spotted him at the entrance and waved him over to sit with the company's team. Nervous, she asked with a knowing smile. "Very," Khalid admitted. "Don't be. Your designs are excellent." When the Lagos luxury footwear segment began, Khalid could barely breathe. Models strode confidently down the runway wearing his collection. "Those are striking," said a woman sitting behind Khalid. "Very innovative." By the time his 3rd design was shown, Khalid's heart was pounding with pride. The crowd applauded enthusiastically. At the reception afterward, Mr. Adebayo introduced Khalid to various industry insiders as one of our promising young designers. A tall, elegant man with a French accent approached them. "Those patterns on the leather are very creative," he said. "I haven't seen anything like it before." Mr. Adebayo shook the man's hand warmly. "Philippe, good to see you. Let me introduce Khalid, the designer behind those particular shoes." "Ah, excellent work, young man," Philippe said, turning to Khalid. "I'm Philippe Moreau, CEO of Elegance Footwear." Khalid's eyes widened. Elegance was one of the most prestigious shoe companies in the world. "Thank you, sir," Khalid managed to say. "It's an honor to meet you." "The honor is mine," Philippe replied. "Fresh ideas are rare in our industry." He handed Khalid a business card. "We're sponsoring an international design competition next month. The Young Innovators Award. You should enter." Khalid looked at the card in shock. "A competition?" The winner receives a masterclass with our top designers in Paris and a cash prize of $100,000, Philippe explained. More importantly, they gain international recognition. Mr. Adebayo clapped Khalid on the shoulder. He'll consider it, he said diplomatically. After Philippe moved on, Mr. Adebayo turned to Khalid. This is a significant opportunity, he said. Elegance rarely notices designers from Africa. But I work for Lagos Luxury, Khalid said, confused. Wouldn't it be disloyal to enter? Mr. Adebayo laughed. Khalid, I want my designers to be the best in the world. This competition could open doors for you and reflect well on us. You have my blessing to enter. Back in his house, Khalid researched the Young Innovators Award. The competition was indeed prestigious. Previous winners had gone on to successful careers with major fashion houses. The challenge for this year was to design a shoe that combined tradition and innovation. Khalid spent the next 2 weeks sketching ideas for his competition entry. He wanted to create something truly special. He decided he would make a men's dress shoe that combined tradition and modern techniques. The time leading to the competition, Khalid barely slept. He worked his regular job during the day and spent most nights perfecting his competition entry. 2 days before the submission deadline, Khalid completed his prototype. The shoes were beautiful, rich brown leather with intricate patterns. Khalid carefully photographed the shoes and submitted his entry online, then he waited. A month later, an email arrived. Congratulations! You have been selected as a finalist in the Young Innovators Award. Khalid stared at the screen in disbelief. Out of thousands of entries worldwide, his design was one of 10 finalists. The email instructed him to bring his prototype to the final judging in Paris, where he would present his work to a panel of industry experts. Paris? Khalid whispered. He had never left Nigeria before. When he showed the email to Mr. Adebayo, the CEO, he was proud of Khalid and he had faith that his employee could win the competition. Mr. Adebayo decided he was going to take care of Khalid's travel expenses as a way to show his support to him. Khalid was so grateful to his boss he thanked him and promised to make him proud. When he arrived, Paris was overwhelming, the language, the food, all so different from Lagos. The hotel where the competition organizers had booked him was more luxurious than any place he had ever stayed. The final judging took place at Elegance Footwear's headquarters. The other finalists came from around the world. When it was Khalid's turn, he came to present to the judges. The panel included Philippe Moreau and 4 other industry legends. These shoes tell a story, Khalid began. As he explained his design process and the cultural significance of the patterns, Khalid forgot his nervousness. He spoke from the heart about his journey. When he finished, Philippe Moreau picked up one of the shoes and examined it closely. The hand tooling is exquisite, he commented. Thank you, sir, Khalid replied. Philippe nodded thoughtfully and made a note on his pad. The judges deliberated for hours while the finalists waited nervously. Philippe Moreau took the microphone. Design is not just about aesthetics, he began. It's about solving problems, telling stories. Our winner this year has demonstrated exceptional skill in all these areas. Khalid held his breath. The winner of this year's Young Innovators Award is Khalid Ahmed from Nigeria. For a moment, Khalid couldn't move. As he walked to the stage, the audience applauded politely, but many looked surprised. Philippe handed him a trophy and a check for $100,000. Congratulations, young man, he said. Your journey is just beginning. Cameras flashed. It was overwhelming and he was grateful. The next morning, Philippe Moreau invited Khalid to breakfast at his private office. I was impressed by your presentation yesterday, Philippe said as they sat down. Not just the shoes, but your passion and authenticity. Thank you, sir, Khalid replied. I have a proposal for you, Philippe continued. Elegance is expanding its presence in emerging markets. We need new creative designers. I'd like to offer you a position in our Paris design studio. Khalid was surprised. A position at Elegance? He could hardly believe what he was hearing. The salary would be substantial, of course, Philippe added. And we would sponsor your work visa. May I have some time to think about it? Khalid asked. Philippe looked surprised but nodded. Of course. But don't take too long. Opportunities like this are rare. Back in his hotel room, Khalid paced back and forth. The money alone would change his life forever. But something held him back. He thought about Mr. Adebayo, who had given him his first real chance. After a restless night, Khalid called Philippe and asked to meet again. Have you made your decision? Philippe asked when they met at a cafe near Khalid's hotel. Yes, Khalid said, trying to keep his voice steady. I'm deeply honored by your offer, Mr. Moreau. But I need to decline. Philippe's eyebrows shot up. May I ask why? This is an exceptional opportunity. I believe in what we're building at Lagos Luxury, Khalid explained. Mr. Adebayo took a chance on me when I had nothing. Loyalty is admirable, Philippe said after a moment. But rare in our industry. He studied Khalid with new interest. Perhaps we can find another way to work together. Would you consider designing a capsule collection for us while remaining with your current employer? Khalid's eyes widened. Yes, sir, I accept the offer, thank you for this opportunity. Both men were satisfied with the conclusion. Khalid returned to Nigeria a changed man. The prize money alone was more than he had ever imagined possessing. The master class with Elegance's top designers was scheduled for the following month. And most importantly, he had gained confidence in his own abilities. When he met with Mr. Adebayo to explain his decision to turn down Elegance's job offer, his boss was impressed. In that case, I think it's time for a promotion. Creative director for our premium line. I can't have Paris stealing my best designer, after all. They both laughed and celebrated Khalid's new promotion. Khalid moved into his new office at Lagos Luxury Footwear. With his new salary and the prize money, Khalid was able to move out of his small rented room. He bought a beautiful apartment in an upscale neighborhood of Lagos. He also purchased his first car. 1 year after the competition, Philippe Moreau made good on his promise. Elegance and Lagos Luxury collaborated on a special collection. The launch event was held in Lagos, drawing fashion journalists from around the world. Khalid, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, he was indeed accomplished. Back in Joe's, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the living room. Fatima was returning back from school. It was the day Hajia Rakaya chose for her to come for the next phase of the ritual. In the evening after Fatima went to Hajia Rakaya's house. Are you ready for the next ritual? If this is completed successfully, the spell on your husband will be permanent. Yes, I am ready to do anything, said Fatima. The old woman gave her an ancient calabash. This calabash is now the vessel of your husband's will, the witch doctor had explained. As long as it remains hidden, he will remain under your influence. No eyes but yours must ever see it. If the calabash is discovered, the spell will rebound upon you threefold. And there will be a great punishment for you breaking the rules of the ancient calabash. Fatima was terrified hearing what Hajia Rakaya just said. When Fatima returned back home at night, she immediately had to think of a secured place to keep the calabash. While Sadiq and Hakim was fast asleep, she entered Sadiq's room and placed the calabash under Sadiq's bed. She didn't want to take chances by keeping it in the room her and Hakim stayed. Good morning, my husband, Fatima said sweetly. She carried a tray with breakfast. Your food is ready. Hakim smiled. Thank you, my wife. I have a meeting today, Hakim said, with the business partners from Kaduna. Yes, I laid out your kaftan, Fatima replied. Remember to ask for the higher price we discussed. Hakim nodded obediently without complaints. Finish your breakfast, then get ready for your meeting. I'll take Sadiq to school, said Fatima. Hakim dutifully returned to his meal. When Sadiq returned home after freshening up, he went to his room to play with his games. In his room, Sadiq took out his favorite action figures. As he played, he threw one figure across the room, making explosion sounds as it hit the wall and fell behind his bed. "Oh no," he whispered, crawling over to retrieve his game. He lay flat on his stomach and reached his arm under the bed, his fingers brushed against something unfamiliar. Curious, he stretched further until he could grasp the object and pull it out. It was a calabash, decorated with strange symbols. "Wow," Sadiq breathed, turning the calabash in his hands. It felt warm. He shook it gently and heard something shifting inside. A treasure! In the sitting room, Fatima was watching TV when a sudden cold sensation washed over her. The remote slipped from her fingers, falling to the floor. Her heart raced and she felt something was wrong. The witch doctor's warning flashed through her mind, "No eyes, but yours must ever see it." "Sadiq," she whispered, running toward his room. Meanwhile, Sadiq had become completely fascinated by the calabash. He ran his fingers over it. "I wonder what's inside," he murmured. The door burst open, and Fatima stood there. When she saw what Sadiq was holding, she let out a strangled cry. "Put that down," she shouted, hurrying forward and snatching the calabash from his hands. "Where did you get this? Who told you to look under the bed?" Sadiq scrambled backward, frightened by his mother's fury. "Nobody. My game fell, and I was just, never touch this again." Fatima shouted, "Do you understand me? Never." Sadiq felt bad. "I'm sorry, Mama. I didn't know it was yours." Fatima was barely listening. The calabash felt different in her hands. It was starting to get hot and more active. She could feel the magic inside stirring. "Get out now," she ordered, her voice shaking. "Now, Sadiq. Go." Sadiq ran out of the room in fear and confusion. Fatima could hear some whispers from inside the calabash, but she thought it was just her imagination. Then the voices got louder. It became a mixture of indistinct voices that made her ears hurt. "No, no, no," she muttered, pacing the room. "This can't be happening." She wished and hoped that nothing bad would happen. She needed to hide the calabash and speak to Hajia Rakaya immediately. Maybe she could reverse the spell. She heard the front door open and close. Hakim was home early from his meeting. In confusion, Fatima quickly kept the calabash inside Sadiq's wardrobe and covered it with clothes. Taking a deep breath to compose herself, she went to greet her husband, expecting the same obedient man who had left that morning. Instead, Hakim stood in the entryway looking confused. When he saw Fatima, he didn't smile as he usually did. "The meeting," he said slowly, as if struggling to form thoughts. "I couldn't concentrate. I kept thinking about, something's missing." Cold fear gripped Fatima's heart. "You're just tired, my love. Come, sit down. I'll bring you some tea." Fatima's mind raced for an explanation, but before she could speak, a crash from upstairs made them both jump. It came from Sadiq's bedroom. "Sadiq!" Fatima gasped, running towards his room with Hakim close behind. They found the boy standing in his bedroom, surrounded by clothes that had fallen from the open wardrobe. At his feet lay the calabash. It had broken into several pieces. Unknown to Fatima, while she went to greet Hakim, Sadiq snuck back into his room and checked everywhere for the calabash. He wondered why his mother was so protective of it, and he was curious to know what was inside it. When he checked his closet, some pieces of cloth he held fell to the ground, including the calabash. When Fatima saw the broken pieces of the calabash, she was in shock. She fell to her knees and tried to put the pieces together, but it was hopeless. "Sadiq, what have you done to me? I am finished." At that moment, a cold shiver ran through her body, followed by a wave so powerful it made her knees shake. Sadiq just watched his mother in confusion and fright. He didn't have any words to reply his mother. Instantly, Hakim felt a strange feeling. It was like a fog lifting from his mind. Memories came flooding back. He remembered how badly he treated Khalid, how he sent him away to the village. "Khalid," he whispered, the name of his son feeling strange on his tongue, as if he hadn't spoken it in years. "Why did I send Khalid away? What happened to me?" Fatima began confessing, "My husband, please forgive me. I didn't want Khalid to take your love away from me and Sadiq. I just wanted you to love us the way you love him." "Fatima, tell me, what did you do to me?" Don't make me angry. I bewitched you, Fatima said, tears streaming down her face. I used a charm to make you hate Khalid. I didn't want to share you with him. You bewitched me, he said, his voice hollow with shock. That's why I can't remember. That's why I sent my own son away. That's why I felt so empty. Fatima pleaded with Hakim, please forgive me, I'm sorry for all I did. I didn't know what I was doing. How could you do this? He asked. Did you think you could control me forever? I did it for us, Fatima pleaded, for our family. Khalid was destroying everything. No, Hakim said, shaking his head. You were destroying everything with your jealousy and need for control. And now look what you've done. Where is Khalid? Hakim demanded, his voice shaking with rage. Where is my son? I don't know, Fatima said. Please Hakim, forgive me. I don't want anything bad to happen to me. Please save me. Hakim was annoyed by all she did, but he was still concerned. I don't understand, what bad thing is going to happen to you? The witch doctor said, if the calabash was discovered, it would rebound. The magic would turn against the caster. I don't want to face great punishment, please help me Hakim. What does that mean? Hakim asked, keeping his distance from her. I wanted to secure your love and attention, but I had to use a charm to ensure you saw Khalid as an enemy. You played with forces you didn't understand, Fatima, all because you couldn't accept my love for my son. Please, Fatima begged. I was wrong. I see that now. Help me. Hakim didn't speak a word. He couldn't bring himself to forgive Fatima for the wickedness she had done to his family. Just then she screamed a sound of terror that made Sadiq cover his ears. It wasn't a normal scream of pain or fear, but something deeper, as if something was being torn from her very soul. Suddenly her eyes were normal again, but there was something different about them, something vacant and lost. She looked around the room as if seeing it for the first time. The voices, she murmured. So many voices. All talking at once. Can't you hear them? She began to pace. Without warning, she ran past him and out of the room. Fatima, stop! Hakim called, chasing her down the hallway. But she was already at the front door, flinging it open and racing out into the street. The voices, she screamed at passers-by, who stopped to stare. Make them stop. Please? Hakim reached the door just in time to see Fatima running down the middle of the street. She continued running, screaming about voices. Neighbors emerged from their houses, drawn by the commotion. They stared in shock as Fatima, who was always so composed, ran through the streets like a madwoman barefooted, her hair flying wild around her face. Fatima! Hakim called one last time, but she was already turning the corner, disappearing from sight. Sadiq stood beside his stepfather and tapped him. Hakim looked at him. Is Mama gone? The boy asked in a sad voice. For now, yes. She's not feeling well. Because of the magic thing? Sadiq asked. The one in the calabash? Hakim sighed heavily. Yes. Your mother did something very wrong. She got involved with some evil powers, and she is getting punished for it. Will she come back? Sadiq's lower lip trembled. Will she come back? Sadiq's lower lip trembled. I don't know, but we can only hope that God forgives her and gives her another chance. Hakim answered honestly. But right now, we need to find your brother Khalid. Sadiq agreed with his father. He was disappointed that his mother will do bad things like that, but he wished she would be all right and come back to them and change her ways. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number he knew by heart but hadn't called in years. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Hakim's heart sank with each unanswered ring. Then, finally, hello? A young man's voice, cautious and guarded. Khalid, Hakim said, his voice breaking. My son. I need to see you. A long pause. Why? So you can tell me again what a disappointment I am? How I'm no longer welcome in your home? No, Hakim said, tears streaming down his face now. so I can beg your forgiveness. I was not myself, Khalid. Your stepmother, she used magic against us both. But the spell is broken now. Another pause, then I knew it. I knew Fatima was evil. I tried to tell you, but you didn't believe me. I know it sounds impossible, Hakim said. But please, come to the house. Your brother Sadiq needs you. And so do I. I don't want to ever see you again. I have tried to forget all the pain you put me through. So please don't call me again. Said Khalid, please my son, you know I can never hurt you. I am deeply sorry for all the pains I caused you. I was not in my right senses. Please just come back home and we can talk better. Remember, I am still your father. After what felt like an eternity, Khalid sighed. Okay, I will come to see you and Sadiq. Thank you, Hakim whispered. Thank you, my son. Khalid is finally coming back home, said Hakim. They were both happy at the good news. The day Khalid said he will come back home arrived, and Hakim paced anxiously in front of his house. Every few minutes, he would check his phone or peer down the street, looking for any sign of Khalid. Sadiq was anticipating his brother's return also. Will he really come, Baba? Sadiq asked for the third time. He promised he would, Hakim replied, though he had some doubts. After all he had said to Khalid under Fatima's spell, would his son ever truly forgive him? An hour later, a sleek black car turned onto their street. It moved slowly, as if the driver was looking for an address. Hakim's was nervous when the car pulled up in front of their house. The man who stepped out was not the boy Hakim remembered sending away. Khalid had always been handsome, but now he carried himself with confidence and poise. His clothes were expensive. Khalid, Hakim whispered, frozen in place. Father and son stared at each other across the short distance of the front yard. Years had passed without them seeing each other. Sadiq was so excited to see his brother. After a long time he ran and gave his stepbrother a hug. Khalid was so happy to be reunited with Sadiq. You have grown to be a big boy, Khalid said to his younger brother. Sadiq smiled. You look so good, big brother. Is this your car? Yes, it is. Khalid instructed Sadiq to excuse him and the father so they could have some grown-up conversation. Sadiq obeyed. Father, Khalid finally said, his voice carefully controlled. Hakim could no longer contain himself. He rushed forward, tears streaming down his face. Forgive me, he pleaded, I was not myself. The things I said, they were not from my heart. Khalid was deeply hurt, but he missed his father and he knew he was under a spell. You told me I was no longer your son, Khalid said quietly. Do you know Grandma passed away because you refused to support us while we looked for money for her medical expenses? Each word was like a knife in Hakim's heart. You know I would have never allowed something like that happen if I was in my right senses. I loved Saratu's mother, she was like a mother to me. I hope she can forgive me. When I regained my senses I found out that she passed away and I have been deeply hurt. Hakim sobbed. The spell Fatima cast is broken, Hakim explained desperately. The calabash that held the magic. Sadiq found it by accident. When it broke, my mind cleared. I remembered everything, how much I love you, how proud I am of you. And where is Fatima now? Khalid asked, his voice hardening at the mention of his stepmother. Gone, Hakim said, the magic rebounded on her. She lost her mind and ran into the streets. Khalid's expression softened slightly. Despite everything Fatima had done, he took no pleasure in her suffering. Inside the house, over cups of strong tea, Hakim told Khalid everything, about Fatima's jealousy, the visit to the witch doctor, the calabash hidden under the bed, and the spell that had clouded his mind and turned him against his own son. Khalid sat quietly for a long while, absorbing the incredible story. Finally, he spoke. When I left, I was so angry, so hurt. I went to Lagos after Grandma's death. I struggled to find my way and eventually my shoemaking skill helped me land a job at a big shoe company. I am so proud of you, my son. Hakim smiled at his son's accomplishments. Khalid smiled. I make good money at my workplace and I have my own apartment in Lagos. Pride swelled in Hakim's chest. His son, successful, independent, making his own way in the world. That's wonderful, Khalid. Baba, Khalid said, I forgive you for all you did because it's clear now that you were not in your right senses. I am glad you are back to yourself. I prayed and hoped you will be okay, and my prayers have finally been answered. Hakim was happy that his son had forgiven him and given him another chance. They both hugged each other. My son, I promise I will be the best father to you. Khalid looked around the house where he had grown up, where he had lived with his father after his mother died, where Fatima had later made him feel like an unwelcome guest. I can't stay here, he said finally. Too many bad memories. Hakim's hope dimmed, but he nodded in understanding. Of course. I understand. But, Khalid continued, my apartment in Lagos has enough space. It's more than enough for 3 people, if you and Sadiq wanted to come with me. Hakim stared at his son in disbelief. You would do that? After everything that happened? Family is family, Khalid said simply. Even when they hurt us. Tears filled Hakim's eyes again. My son, he whispered. My wonderful son. Khalid invited Sadiq to join them. How would you like to live in Lagos? Khalid asked his younger brother. It's a big city, there are beaches and tall buildings and lots of interesting things to see. Sadiq's eyes widened. Can I go to school there? Of course I'll take you to the best schools, Khalid promised. What about Mama? Sadiq asked, suddenly remembering. Will she come too? An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Finally, Hakim moved to sit beside his younger son. Your mum is sick right now, Sadiq. She needs special help that we can't give her. But we will try to find some help for her when we can. 2 weeks later, a moving truck stood in front of Hakim's house in Jos. Hakim had sold most of their belongings, keeping only what held sentimental value, like family photos and some furnitures that belonged to Saratu. As Hakim supervised the loading of the last few boxes, an old woman approached him. It was Mrs. Garber, their neighbor for many years. I saw her again yesterday, the old woman said. Hakim didn't need to ask who she meant. Where? By the marketplace. Talking to herself, waving her arms at invisible things. Mrs. Garber shook her head sadly. People give her food sometimes, but she doesn't stay anywhere for long. Did you speak to her? I tried, Mrs. Garber sighed. She didn't recognize me. Hakim shook his head. I have contacted her family in Kano. They know where she is. If they want to help her, they can come for her. His voice hardened. She used black magic to turn me against my son, Mrs. Garber. She made me say terrible things to him, made me send him away. Some things cannot be forgiven. The old woman nodded slowly. May Allah guide you all to the right path, she said, and walked away. Sadiq ran up to his father, excited about the journey ahead. Baba! Khalid says we can stop for ice cream on the way. Hakim smiled, pushing thoughts of Fatima from his mind. Does he now? Well, I suppose we could do that. Khalid joined them, car keys in hand. The truck is all loaded. They'll meet us in Lagos. He looked at the house one last time. Are you ready? Hakim nodded. It's time for a fresh start. 6 months later, life in Lagos had settled into a pleasant routine. Khalid opened a big bookstore for his father, and Sadiq was enrolled in a good school near their apartment, and he was thriving in his studies. Khalid kept on progressing in his career, but a part of him wanted to pursue his dream of going to the university. He wanted to do it for his late mother, so he enrolled in some classes during his free time. The family was finally reunited in peace and love, after all the challenges they had faced. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to this channel and click the notification button for more interesting stories. And please drop your comment on what you learned from this story. Please like and share this video, as your input means a lot to us. Keep enjoying our stories with your friends and family.